Welcome, everybody. Appreciate you guys coming in. Elliot, Kohn from Comprehensive Rehab Consultants. We are a national physiatry group servicing facilities across the country. Two of you use us. I might look familiar in this chair because I was here a little bit earlier, but I have been privileged to putting together some of these panels, and putting together a panel can be complicated for two things. Number one, the topic of conversation and the purpose of that conversation, and then the most important factor is putting together the panelists. We've had the opportunity, because it's we have people that are operating in facilities across the country. I kind of took this understanding initiative to find number one topic is obviously operations within facilities, within skilled nursing facilities, but also focusing a little bit more on, I think, the number one issue in the healthcare space, which is labor and staffing. So I put together a group here that I first want to acknowledge and appreciate all of you from coming in near and far. Some of you have flown in from across the country. Some of you have driven from 22 minutes away. Some of you, myself, are only 9 minutes away, but I appreciate you guys making the trip and making the effort and spending the time to do that. So I'll go through the panelists and then we'll kind of walk through certain aspects. Right to my left, we have Mirlana Morris. Mirlana is the Chief Operating Officer of Family of Caring. Family of Caring has 10 facilities in New Jersey. 9 of them are in North Jersey, and then you have one in South Jersey. If you don't know who Family of Caring is in New Jersey or in the space, your eyes might be closed. But what they do a little bit differently is how they truly identify patient care, put focus on a lot of different things, especially they're in probably the most cutthroat competitive market where it comes to other facilities and other struggles that they may have. They also are a family-owned business. They're upstanding family members. I think some of them are here, so thank you for joining. And I've known Mirlana for 8 years now? 8 years now. I've had multiple roles, but we've never actually really worked together yet. But really got to know who you are and how you operate and how your team really trusts in what you do, and you're going to have a lot to offer and with your experience and knowledge. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
To Mirlana's left, we have Adam Cusner. Adam is the CEO at Lionstone. Lionstone operates about 40 facilities now in the state of Ohio. I've met Adam 4 years ago at ECAP. I was doing home health. You were operating at that point in Arizona, I believe. Adam flew in from Ohio this morning, so again, thank you for making the trip. Lionstone expands across the state. Are you the biggest operator in the state or close to it? Number 2. Oh, right. Number 1 in my eyes. But Adam, there's always a certain energy around you and how you hold yourself to your organization, and kind of seeing what you guys are doing. It's a little bit difficult. Ohio can be a pretty difficult state to operate in. So looking forward to hearing what you have to share with the group. Right there we have Brandon Tappan. Brandon flew in from Dallas, so I appreciate you coming in for that. Brandon is the Chief Revenue Officer for ShiftKey. ShiftKey is the, in my opinion, largest workforce technology company in the country. Did that okay? There you go. But besides that, Brandon, we've known each other for a couple of years now. Brandon is a visionary. He truly is. He understands all the different factors when it comes from running a very, very large-scale organization, but also prior to ShiftKey, Brandon was the Chief Operating Officer for Stonegate. Stonegate is a large nursing home operation group based in Texas as well, and you have a lot to offer. Very involved in lobbying in certain aspects as well. So again, with all the factors that bring everybody together, I'm excited to hear what you have to share as well. Antonio Johnson is the Vice President of Rehab at Cantex Continuing Care Network. He's also the president of Pivot Rehab. I've known Antonio for also, 5-6 years now. Antonio is a PT by trade and a PT by practice. Cantex is truly a continuing care network in Texas. They have about 39 facilities as well in the area. And then also has all the different factors of the care continuum. They operate home health, hospice, iSNP, a rehab company, CSNP, and there's a lot of different aspects that bring everything together. So really appreciate you being here and all of you being here, and thank you all for joining us. So as I said, I might look familiar because I was sitting in this chair a little bit earlier, and I started the last panel with this same question. And it kind of sets the tone to understand a little bit from each of you what your pain points are in certain aspects. And I'd like to hear from each of you. You know, our healthcare world is vast and complicated and complex and yet beautiful at the same time. But yet there are multiple things that should be fixed, can be fixed, and some things unfortunately can't be fixed. But I'm curious to hear from each of you if there was one thing that you can pick in the healthcare space that we're living in right now that you can change, what would that be and why? Go ahead, Mirlana.
Sorry. First of all, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you, Elliot, for that really nice introduction. One thing that I think that I would love to see changed is how we're surveyed and the whole 5-star, that whole process and our star ratings. I don't understand how really we could be a 5-star building one day and have one bad survey, which is not even necessarily bad, and then become a 2-star facility. Overnight, you didn't change, right? So what we're counting on, who is your surveyor, who surveys you, do they like you, do they not, did they wake up in a bad mood that day? Like, is that fair to us? Like, we could work so hard day in, day out, provide excellent care, and get that surveyor who's just known to give out 10, 12, 15 deficiencies, and the next thing you know, you were 5 stars, and now you're a 2-star facility. That doesn't mean you provide 2-star quality. We don't. And I think we could all be in agreement on that. And if it didn't really matter, then it'd be like, fine, it doesn't matter. But unfortunately, the star ratings do count. It does make a huge difference. Someone who's looking into different facilities, when they look online and they see a 1-star versus a 5-star and doesn't know anything else, they're gonna judge you by that. Just like when we're looking at hotels, I'd rather go to a 5-star hotel than a 1-star. I mean, it's just what we do, right? In addition to the fact that a lot of the hospitals, you could be on a preferred list only if you're at a certain star rating. If you're not, then you don't even get to be on that list. You don't even get to be even an option for patients to choose your building when you could really be providing amazing care. But now that you're a 2-star facility, you don't have that opportunity to take care of those patients. In addition to the fact there's like for ortho patients, for certain joints, you have to be at least a 3-star and above to get those, you don't have to have 3 midnights in the hospital and you can still take care of those patients. But if you're below 3 stars, you just lost out on all that business. So I just wish that we could come to a different way to really grade us, so to speak. I definitely do appreciate and believe that we do need to be held to a high standard. We should be providing good care. Someone should be checking in on us. But there has to be a different way of doing it that's fair, because I honestly don't believe the way it's being done right now is fair. I don't.
Can I piggyback?
Absolutely.
All right, I don't have to come up with a new idea. I can take hers?
You're welcome.
All right, perfect. It's a great idea. Fair enough. So similarly, I know we've worked with the state and tried focusing on regulate the regulators as an initiative in order to provide us with a higher quality of care without causing too much disruption. Because similar to exactly what you're saying, sometimes the regulators come in, the surveyors, state surveyors come in, and they're not really providing the exact necessary management that we would like to see in order to create a better product. One of the things that we discussed was with the CMPs, with all the civil monetary penalties that take place, and discussed with legislators, senators, state senators, as well as at the federal level, working with the ambassadors group in a variety of different ways, is trying to find ways to, instead of having us be penalized and allowing that money to just go into federal coffers, into the regions, I think Region 4 has somewhere in the neighborhood of $36 million sitting in a coffer that you can only access through CMP grants, which is I believe it's at a $5,000 click at any particular point. That's where you see all the aviaries that are floating around all the nursing homes, but finding ways to say, instead of penalizing us and requiring us to pay a fine, instead mandating us to improve the lives of our residents with a certain dollar amount, to show some level of transparency after a year or two to showcase exactly how much we've spent improving the lives of our residents. That's what I'd love to see.
I appreciate that. What I would also say on the star ratings, Mirlana, if it matters, I count your facilities as 5-star. So they can call me.
As long as you do, then we're fine,
Yeah.
right? Yes.
Brandon.
Yeah, thanks. It's a long list, but I think I'll wear my workforce technology leader hat here. I think, yeah, right. I think I look at what's going to be the most influential variable over the next several years, despite really impressive technological advances. I think it's national demographics. It's going to be that biggest influential variable. So from my seat, I would change and normalize the expanded definition of workforce beyond the employee or contractor constructs. Top to bottom, rewrite policy, rewrite regulation, guidelines that give operators and clinical professionals like the real flexibility and creativity to do what they need to do that works best for them individually, best for their operation, and best for their patients and community to tackle those challenges. And there's so much friction and poorly aligned incentives that I think create an environment where people can't be particularly creative. I think where people, the worker, gets commoditized. I'm stealing a bit from Jess if he's in the room. I like that term. So that's what I would change, and that is some of the things that I do from a legislative advocacy standpoint is any way to build the workforce and empower it better.
Well, thank you. Antonio, my friend.
Show of hands in the audience. Reimbursement? Anyone? So that would be what I would change across the board. I mean, every single company that's represented in this room does what they do on a daily basis to make sure that we're delivering exceptional clinical care, value-based care, and everything else. But the reimbursement across the entire country still isn't where it needs to be, and it varies so much from state to state that whenever we're looking at some of these other underlying issues, whether it be staffing, turnover, what we're trying to get accomplished with quality measures and 5-star, it comes down to, do we have enough operationally to cover the cost to deliver this care? And until we get there from a reimbursement perspective, these issues are going to continue. As it relates to take-home ideas and what we're trying to do as an organization, which I'm pretty sure is happening with all of your organizations as well, is getting together on a larger scale. I think one of the panelists mentioned earlier, we have so much competition amongst ourselves that we're doing each other more damage than good. So it comes down to really getting together, creating those large lobbying groups, advocacy as well from a political aspect to really make an impact on reimbursement across the board.
Well, thank you. It's all these answers kind of flow into some of the topics we're going to talk about. It's as if we prepped or something. Wow. But Antonio, just actually on that point, we were talking about competition. So as I mentioned, Cantex has a large continuing care network. One of the things I know that you've been working on recently is your responsibility primarily at Cantex for a while was managing the rehab teams, whether that's staffing the rehab teams, managing them, making sure they're doing everything accordingly. And you've started Pivot Rehab, which essentially is offering those management full service support to other providers across the country. And my previous background experience working within home health and hospice, where I have relationships with competitors of the organization that I was working at, and sometimes it's a hard balance to be able to, why they want to work with you if you're essentially affiliated with an organization that's competing with them down the block. So curious to hear is it a struggle that you're facing when you're talking to some providers say, hey, like, why should I use you? I know you can manage my rehab, but you essentially are part of Cantax. Curious to hear, any of those barricades that you've seen and what you guys have been doing about it.
It's definitely been a challenge, to say the least, but ultimately, it really comes down to, in terms of your therapy operation, are you really prioritizing the business needs of the operator? And that's the question. Those business needs come down to the bottom line. Those business needs also come down to what are your clinical outcomes, and how are you able to leverage that information to actually build more business for that operator? And that's really what we're about in terms of prioritizing the needs of the operators above our own. Because if we take that approach, then the secondary results will benefit us because we're prioritizing what the operator needs as well as taking care of their patients and residents.
Can appreciate that. As you mentioned, priorities. Curious to hear from you guys of some operational priorities that, as your organizations are continuing to grow and to be better established. I know, Adam, you guys are probably making some acquisitions as you guys come along. Curious to kind of hear what those priorities are when you're taking over a new organization. I know you guys just absorbed a group of 8 facilities recently. What those priority number 1 is when you're coming into a new organization. Obviously, culture, integration, staffing, workflow is all part of it, but what are some of those priorities that you've been doing at Lionstone and be able to really capitalize on that?
We have a huge checklist. When it comes to any acquisition, there is a lot. It's a team approach. A lot of what we'd like to prioritize is where we take our current staff, the department heads, and we give them the leadership and the autonomy to really build out what they want to see in their programs. And I think that's been one of the major priorities for the way that we're trying to run our organization, is where we have the chief of clinical meeting with the clinical team, describing exactly what they want to see on the ground level. We have the directors of reimbursement. We have the folks all across every department, allowing them the authority to really transform what they want to see, and they're coming back to us and showcasing what they can accomplish together with this team. And I know we've had some acquisitions that we've turned away, we've shied away from, because we saw some glaring issues that didn't meet our cultural needs, that didn't meet, whether it was off the paper or on the paper. Sometimes we find ourselves in a position where we say, off the page, once we got a chance to get in there and check under the hood, we're seeing some additional concerns.
Yeah, and I'm sure sometimes, right, you met with some setbacks, but it's taking it one step at a time. Brandon, I know obviously from your experience at Stonegate, but also you oversee a very large organization at Shift Key On Shift that requires a lot of operational priorities as well. I'm curious to hear from your experiences operating a bunch of facilities and then now responsible and operating an organization that also is responsible for operating with facilities. Curious to hear any priorities that you guys have that can help you guys better establish and be able to, we talked about before about kind of silos. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I think I'll say procurement and vendor partnership selection, super important. We take that responsibility really seriously. I think that operators need not just products and services, but they need people who understand them, understand their goals, their specific culture, where they're headed, where they're trying to get, and tailor solutions and people that are, like, again, active participants in achieving those goals. That takes people, and so a little odd for a technology company to have so many people. But I do think that's really important, and the things that we build. One of the things I say a lot to my team, trying to explain to my team what it's like to be an operator. And I think I'm going to use this terminology, but some of the childhood trauma for operators is just a lack of control. Mirlana mentioned lack of control around the star rating and the regulatory environment and the reimbursement environment, and on and on and on. Just a lack of control to really stand out day to day, to pass your costs on. I could go on. And so to build things and technology solutions and consultant account managers that empower them, give them more data insights, allow them to use our solutions in a way that works for them specifically. Adam asked a question a moment ago just about culture and backstage, what we're building from a cultural standpoint. Like internally, that's what we're building. Externally, those clinicians who use our network to find work, I'm not interested in, I don't participate really in building a culture necessarily for them. There are certain table stakes, but putting an environment in place where good behavior is rewarded and recognized, and a brand can be built and a reputation can be built, and also giving solutions to operators for them to find the people that work for them, right? Solutions that help them find those people, reward those people, and create good habits is, again, even as a big operator, I think having a consistent culture, and there's table stakes, no doubt, and identity, but a consistent culture across 30, 50, 100 locations is not, I think, a reasonable goal, or shouldn't be a goal. Healthcare is really personal, it's really local, and I think each facility has its own culture. So again, those are the kind of solutions that we're trying to provide to those operators.
Well, I could also say, if you talk about people, and especially in the organization, I can also personally testify you have some rock stars on your team. So that's it's important to recognize that. Mirlana, we talk about burnout, and there's a big churn, especially in certain markets. North Jersey is notorious for that. Talk about even mid-level leadership and obviously staffing on the front lines. Curious to kind of hear your perspective on what Family of Caring does specifically for your team, how you lead as a leader, and what that looks like, especially in probably the most largest turnover market. I think if anyone is talking to anybody in the North Jersey healthcare space, they've worked for 4 different organizations within their career. And so curious to kind of, hear your perspective on that.
I think a lot of people do work for more than one organization or 2, but once they come to Family of Caring, usually that's their last stop, so we hope. And that really starts with Mr. Freeman, the owner, and his entire family. It's really family owned and operated, and the leadership team sets the example for everybody else. So it's really actually amazing. A little bit like what Adam said, you don't want to micromanage to the point where the teams don't feel like they can make their own decisions and do their own thing. So I feel like it's a very healthy balance at Family of Caring. Every building, every administrator is like the CEO of that building. We have regional support, we help, but really, and the Freemans are all there, and myself and the other regionals and everyone, but it starts from the top, and we see them day in, day out. They'll be in every building, any building at any given time, and not in an annoying way. Sometimes we're like, oh shoot, corporate's in the building. No one says that by Family of Caring. They actually ask us to come more. They want us to help. They want us to be there. It's not punitive if we're there. If HR's in the facility, it's not like, is someone gonna get fired today? No, it's not like that at all. So again, it's starting looking from the top, and how Mr. Freeman and his family, and then how myself and the other regionals and corporate team really treat everyone. And it doesn't matter who you are. I think that's what really creates the culture. It doesn't matter if you're a department head, an administrator, dietary staff, housekeeping, every single one is important. As cliche as it sounds, there's no I in team, but that's true. It takes the entire team to make a good stay, have a great outcome for a patient. And I think with Family of Caring, we really try to do that from, I don't want to even say day one, I want to say even before they're hired. We put in place that at the time of the interview, not only does the direct department head interview them, the administrator comes out and meets them, even if it's just for a few minutes, just to get another, set of pair of eyes on them, to see if they're really someone that we want in our buildings, our organization. Do they meet our criteria? Then we move on to the orientation process. We have a set orientation process every single Thursday for all new people coming on board. They get to meet the medical director and HR director and director of operations, and really it just starts them off on the right foot. we give people swag and to make them feel like they're part of not just like another job, but really part of a company, part of a family, and that we care about them, and we really do. And I think just, you know, the ownership team, for them to go around and talk to people, and again, doesn't matter what position you are, just saying, hi, how was your day, or remembering that it's their birthday, or reaching out to them for any specific reason, I think that says a lot. And we're just all I'm following my owner and my leadership, and then it all trickles down from there. And I think that Family of Caring really does do an excellent job in that. I do.
Yeah, I can also attest to that. I've seen personally how again, I mentioned on the previous panel, everybody here has fancy titles, but no one actually really cares about them. And I've personally seen you take over a building and turn it around, and you practice what you preach, and I think that's important to continue to help with that lack of turnover.
Yeah, I think we have to not forget where we came from. I wasn't always a COO. I wasn't always an administrator. I started off as a social worker, and so I have to treat everyone, you know, I want to treat everyone the same, and also I really care about the patients, as we all do, but we have to remember never to forget we were also one time them, you know? We weren't always up there, and I think when we treat people just like us and how we would want to be treated back, that's when you create a certain type of culture and environment.
Well, thank you. Antonio, obviously, you know, there's a lot that goes into managing support across the rehab teams in the facilities, and then obviously as you're doing that across the country and other providers as well. What does that look like in regards to burnout, culture, making sure that kind of people are staying within the network, staying within the system, giving you guys that importance, because rehab is one of the, you know, primary important aspects of skilled nursing facilities, making sure those patients are, you know, rehabilitate, all right, that's in the words there, and get home safely and stay home. So I'm curious to kind of hear what that looks like for you guys.
Yeah, so to Mirlana's point, culture has to be actionable. It's one thing to have your culture on the back wall. Are you actually practicing it? So, you know, one of the panelists earlier made the point that they go out, they get feedback from their teams. We do that as well. We not only listen to that feedback, but we make actionable steps. One of the things that our IT team put together was what's called a people engagement dashboard that was based on operational factors that happen within the business on a day-to-day. And those operational factors are what's going on with teamwork, what's going on with communication, what's going on with leadership, which is the key element, and lastly, do our team members have the resources and support that they need to be successful? So a particular example from a rehab perspective is the majority of our business right now is managed care. So the administrative burden is significantly high in terms of you have this many days to get this patient discharged to the next level of care, and you need to be providing us updates essentially every 3 days. So we contacted our EMR providers to say, hey, how can we start to implement these updates that are generally asked across the board for most MCOs into the actual EMR software so it makes it easier for the clinicians to document? That improved our efficiency. Then, of course, speaking with the clinicians, just letting them know you do have a shorter amount of time to get these particular goals accomplished. So from a culture standpoint, it just comes down to operational practice in terms of we really need to focus on this element of the plan of care to make sure we're in full alignment with meeting the goals while also meeting the goals of the MCOs.
Well, thank you for sharing specifics. That's helpful. Adam.
Was that the full question? Adam question mark?
Adam question mark. Yeah, I'm curious to hear kind of, again, your perspective as I'm sure there's probably a lot of turnover, especially when you're acquiring new facilities. Sometimes people get like, you know, all of a sudden the cat comes back and the mouse scatter away. So, you know, again, Mirlana, you're talking about corporate being in the building, and that's not a bad thing. Have you experienced those times where you go into a new facility and people just start freaking out and walking away, or kind of make it harder for you to identify what's what's the operations like in the facility, what you guys need to do in order to adjust it, and then how do you go about doing that?
Sure. Well, just to be clear, when I walk into my home, my family freaks out and runs away. So it's not entirely a good metaphor. But ultimately, when we bring in new companies, when we're acquiring new companies, when we're bringing on quality talent, I mean, we're always looking also to promote some of those key characters from the other companies and bring them on at a very high level to provide a certain degree of consistency across the board. I think that's very important. On top of that, when I go into buildings or when I send any of the regional staff into buildings, I think we stop with the hallway hellos. I think we're done with that. As I've discouraged people from doing. I think it's all too common where operators will walk in and just walk through the hallways and say, "Oh, hey, shake hands, kiss babies," and try to make the best of it. But I think what we're really trying to do right now is sit down with floor staff, sit down with people, have a 30-second, 2-minute unrushed, unhurried conversation, and get from their vantage point what's going on, figure out from their perspective how we can improve on what they're trying to accomplish. What we've found in that regard is that, I mean, 9 times out of 9, I'd say, 100% of the time, people just want to be heard. And I think that's really, really an important factor that we're oftentimes dismissing. And I think just walking through the facility and having somebody at a high, I know we said we don't care about titles, but when these people see one of us walk through, the title is very important, and it allows them to see that they're important. Speaking with the maintenance staff and just hearing from their vantage point what they could be doing or what we've imposed on them paperwork-wise that's preventing them from doing what they need to do. I mean, one of the systems that I've rolled out has been every noun needs to be verbing. I'll pause for aha moment. It's basically every person in the facility needs to be doing what they're supposed to be doing. A nurse needs to be nursing. An admin needs to be adminning. HR needs to be HRing. What we're trying to do is trying to streamline a lot of the processes that go into the operation and allow those nouns to be verbing. And a lot of that comes down to going to the floor staff and going to those folks, getting a full read from them, how we can improve the situation for them. Creating that culture, creating that dynamic where there's almost a blurred line between the top down, bottom up, and allowing everybody to communicate, because where we come from, truth is truth. It doesn't matter where it comes from across the facility structure. That embeds a certain degree of culture and allows them to feel accepted, wanted, and ultimately those transitions show a higher degree of success.
That's enlightening, actually. Now, when you sometimes have those cases where the nouns aren't verbal, how do you adjust from that accordingly? So some of the staff at the organization or at the facility level or wherever they are, you're met with a little bit of pushback. So how does that, obviously it affects the environment for the organization or for the facility. What are some of the ways where you're giving them support and how they're able to make sure they're verbal?
It's kind of funny when I hear it from somebody else, but I'll take it. I like it. Good verbiage there. There sometimes is resistance, but ultimately we're trying to create the right steps for our company that's going to stay in effect for the next 5 years. Every decision that we're making, we're not looking to do a quick fix. Sometimes decisions will take 2-3 weeks before something actually materializes. We're running a large facility with a lot of different employees, and we don't want to create individual pocketed sections where, those people are using that vendor, those ones are using this vendor, and it creates a whole bunch of tumult and chaos, or these people do it that way, these people do it this way. We're trying to create a structure where we can see from a high level, when we're looking at the metrics, we're saying, the reason why the price point is here is because the price point is because it's across the board, ... But sometimes we are met with resistance, and sometimes I'm met with resistance in the corporate office when I'm coming back and relaying, as the hunter-gatherer, and I'm relaying what I have found out in the field, and I'm saying, wow, look at this, look at what I found, and they're saying, that's where the resistance is being found, because a lot of the people that I'm telling to modify and adjust are the folks that have already put things in place themselves based off of their own read. Many a time, from what I've found is, in a certain capacity, and I hate to say it like this, but there's a dearth of total competency across the board. It's damn near impossible to find the appropriate staff across the board. And what we end up doing is we sometimes grab from other industries, because that's just, finding the expert in that space. And sometimes it's a matter of now training them with our language. It takes about 30, 60, 90 days, somewhere in that regard, to learn the language of the community that you're trying to create over there. And sometimes it's, this worked well in a factory setting in Ohio. That's how we should be doing it. But ultimately, in the nursing home space, we have to do it a little differently. So there might be some resistance along the way, and I just, have broad shoulders and allow them to blame me.
Well, that's respectful. Talk about resistance. Brandon, as a workforce technology group, I would imagine that, especially as staffing is a very, robust, struggling topic for everybody, I would imagine that sometimes when you and your team are kind of talking to organizations, you're met with a little bit of resistance, as culture is important and there's a concern about it, and you shared that you don't care about the culture about the of the actual employees that you guys are putting out there, but yet there's a certain other factor of building that, really making sure that they're building that culture. What specifics can you share that you guys have been doing, because you've been rapidly successful and continuing to grow and touching in other lines of business as well, not just short-term, not just in skilled nursing. So curious to kind of hear some of the resistance that you guys are met with and what you and your organization are kind of doing to circumvent or, walk through that resistance.
Yeah, again, I've been an operator, so I've said things about my own organization that now I have to respond to on this side of the fence. And there are pros and cons. There are pros and cons with a temporary, on-demand, flexible workforce, right? Pros, preserving retention, keeping an active recruitment channel open for folks who are not looking for full-time at this moment. Flexibility that, of course, when demand is dynamic, but also the flexibility it affords you to be with your own employed staff. Certainly maximizing occupancy and access to care, right? Pros, cons, detection of changes in condition, culture, continuity of care, right? Strategic advancement. And those things can be overcome. They can be overcome with a good plan. They can be overcome with technology help. They can be overcome with, frankly, discipline. I'll say that from a consultative standpoint, what we focus on is, as I said before, getting to know our partner client operators, because there's that balance of pros and cons does deteriorates for a few reasons. It deteriorates if at a certain point when that proportion of the total workforce is flexible, on demand, per diem, however you want to say it, for that community, it gets past a certain level, then that balance starts to deteriorate, right? I don't know how Adam's doing today if I didn't see him yesterday, right? Secondly, it deteriorates to the degree in which the use of that tool, that's what it is, right? It's a tool. The use of that tool comes from a place that is not proactive, that is not planful, that is not coordinated. That balance of pros and cons definitely deteriorates in that kind of scenario. So what we focus on is, if you're just in crisis, I'm here to help you. But what I would like to be is someone who helps you achieve your goals. And you're making constant build versus buy type of decisions in your facility. And you're being very purposeful about getting somewhere from a workforce development standpoint, and then maintaining that once you get there.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. So I know that Adam and Antonio, you guys operate primarily in one state, but you have a couple in another state nearby or anything like that. I know Mirlana, you guys are just in one state, the wonderful Garden State of New Jersey. Curious to hear if there's a specific strategic purpose for that. Is there a plan to eventually expand to other markets, and why?
As far as I know, Mr. Freeman, really Family of Caring, it was purposeful to keep it all in New Jersey and hands reach, so that if if anyone is ever needed, if there's a survey that comes up, anyone and everyone could be there in a hop, skip, and a jump. So we don't have to get on an airplane. We can really manage better by being closer together. We've had many opportunities. I mean, Mr. Freeman has many opportunities to buy different portfolios, and also a lot at a time, even within New Jersey, and has chosen not to take them or move forward, because at the end of the day, it's not about the quantity, it's about the quality. And that's something that I don't take for granted, being within Family of Caring, because you could have 5 buildings, you could have 8 buildings, you could have 30 buildings, but in the end of the day, you could run 10 buildings that we have really well and do that much better than owning 100 buildings all over the place. Not that that's not a good thing either. It's also great to have a lot, but sometimes it's just to focus on keep improving what you do have, because we're not, as good as we are, we could always improve. If I said that we're perfect, I'd be lying, right? There's always what we could do better, and that's what we really strive to do, is we don't want to just be good, we want to be great, we want to be amazing, we want to be the only choice in our area, and the only way to really do that is to keep putting our resources and be close by and be at hand's reach, and I think that's what we do, and I think the plan, if I'm not mistaken, is to really stay within this area. So not to say we're not going to grow, we will if it's something that makes sense. And typically that's what we do. We'll buy a building 1 or 2, one at a time, every couple of years. That makes sense. The whole package needs to make sense. And that we can really take over properly. Because in the end of the day, you are taking on new employees, you are taking on, new residents, and we don't want to just come in and turn everyone's life upside down and not do it the right way. And if we can't do it the right way, we're not going to do it at all.
Yeah, I mean, New York is not a flight, it's just a $42 toll. But I understand the difference of, by the way, for any of you not from the tri-state, if you try to drive into New York, your toll will be expensive. But it's still, it's operational efficiency and being able to do that accordingly. Adam, operating 40 facilities in one state, that can be quite challenging as well. What are the certain factors that you guys are utilizing that can truly keep everything within, obviously the focus of having support? You can have large organizations and with a lot of support, but sometimes you have large organizations that have a lot of support but don't actually have a lot of support. So kind of curious to hear what you guys are doing and how you're structuring things and be able to establish what those look like.
So from an operational perspective, and I'm glad you're curious about this because I have a lot to say, but from an operational perspective,
it's like we prepped or something. It's crazy.
From an operational perspective, what we try to accomplish is we try to offset a lot of the human involvement. As I mentioned before, there's a finite amount of human capital in any state, and specifically in Ohio just the same. There are 929 nursing homes across the state, so we have a high degree of competition. So having 40 is just a blip. And like I said, being 40 and we're the second largest in the state of Ohio, that's really remarkable in that regard. So there's a lot of competition. That being said, what we try to introduce is automation, AI, involving a lot of software programs and tools that allow us to have more visibility into the operations, as well as allowing our key members to do their job more efficiently. On top of that, we've also instituted a Lionstone Academy, where we have program Elevate, where we are allowing an educational curriculum to be flown through, I guess you could say, through our program. We actually brought on a professor from Capella University who provides healthcare administration at the college level, and she designed a course curriculum for our administrators, for our staff, for our RDOs, for our higher level folks, and allows her, she's deeply involved within our process in order to bring everyone up, elevate. Nice, right? In order to bring everyone up to the place that we want to see
The nouns
them.
are verb in there.
You bet. Oh, elevate the elevating? All right, we'll make it happen. Point is that we are bringing up our human capital with who we have, and we're trying to support them. Going back to the whole culture component, we're also offsetting with software programs. That's the basic gist.
Can you share you said an AI, is there any specific one that you're using that you found helpful?
I see megadata. Do you want me to just throw megadata in there? Is this being recorded? No, so there's a variety of different software tools that are out there. So we're obviously being very, from my vantage point, we like to shoot a mouse with an elephant gun. So we like to go out there and take as many software programs as we possibly can and try to identify who's going to win. And it's okay if we double over in some certain arenas in a variety of different ways. But there are certain programs out there that I don't want to necessarily name drop any particular program. Do you want me to use? Okay. All right. Fair enough. All right, fair enough. But the point is that I don't want to specify any particular software program, but ultimately what we're trying to accomplish is finding the right program that's going to fit our cultural needs and really something that's actually going to be used by our facilities. You know, if we bring on a program that's dynamite and we look at it as dynamite, and then once again I do those hallway chats where I sit down and have real honest conversations with the staff and find out no one's even touching it, it's dismissed. It's not going to stick around. It's not going to live for very long.
Shooting a mouse with an elephant gun. Nice. Okay. You're hitting us with those.
That's free.
Antonio, so I've had the privilege of working with you and with some of your facilities from the physiatry side, and as we continue to expand our partnership, there's a certain, I would use, energy or flavor within Cantex. There's a true understanding across the board because, again, Texas is a pretty large state, and there's a lot of different factors within every market. As for the while that you've been at Cantex and developing those rehab teams and some of the organizations, what are some of the specific factors that you've and your team have been able to develop that have allowed you to build that culture and that the message is clear across the board? We talked in the last panel about silos, and we talked a little bit about it now. Kind of curious to hear from you, what you guys have been doing and how you've been able to accomplish that, because it's not easy.
It's not easy at all, particularly in Texas with the level of competition that we have, but I think we're always trying to push the envelope as it comes to being innovative. I was speaking to an operator earlier out in the hallway who had just mentioned, hey, we just do sniff well. It's like, all right, that's great, but in terms of advancing the company, all right, let's see what our pharmacy can do. Let's see what our therapy solutions can do. Let's see what our managed care plans in terms of I-SNPs and C-SNPs can do. Let's see what advanced primary care practice or nurse practitioner business can do, because we understand that as there continues to be a shortage of physicians, NPs are going to continue playing a critical role, particularly as it relates to the long-term care industry. So really just trying to figure out what does this industry look like within the next 5, 10 to 15 years, and getting feedback from not only our leadership but our frontline staff to figure out what are going to be our futuristic goals to start setting the tone for potentially other people to also collaborate and see how we can strengthen the industry overall.
And it works. Thank you. We're kind of nearing towards the end. Does anybody have any questions? Wow, we were that clear, guys. Good job. But I wanted to take the opportunity to recognize the effort that you guys put in to come out, spend some time, put yourself up on stage, and kind of talk about certain factors that are truly helpful to the world that we're living in. I think one thing that I've heard a while ago, which is, why are people in healthcare in the first place? We're here because we want to be, not because we're here to make a buck. And it's truly you guys all take responsibility in giving your staff, your leadership, your patients' families, the ability to truly have the proper care that they deserve, whether you're a 5-star or 1-star. It doesn't really matter. And hearing, again, Adam, some of the things that you guys are doing at Limestone and the elevating the elevate, or is that backwards? But it gives the opportunity for your staff to be able to grow. And Brandon, your experience and knowledge on what you guys are doing at your organization from your experience previously, truly giving the facilities the support that they need when they need it, and even if they think that they don't, because usually they do, but giving them that capacity to do that, and thank you for sharing that experience on that as well. And then Antonio, I mean, like I said, I've known you for quite a while, what you guys are doing at your organization and what you're trying to be able to provide, that level of support to other organizations as well. They'd be lucky to have you. So again, appreciate everybody for coming out. Thank you for listening, and we appreciate it.